Hello, I'm here today at Fitness Factory of Charlotte. I'm doing an upper body workout. I'm going to be starting with my back today and then doing my push muscles, my chest. I actually did these same muscles 48 hours ago, but that's the way this weekly schedule has worked out. In that workout, I did chest first, back second, and you can see in the description for this video a link for that video. If you want to check that out, I did that at Exercise Times 24/7, which is a gym in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So I'm back here at the home base, which is Fitness Factory in Charlotte, North Carolina. I love this gym. This is where I come to when I'm not going to work out at home. Love the owner, Eileen, she's awesome. And then also the selection of equipment is just amazing. I'll do a quick video tour of the gym in this video as well so you can see. What I'm doing today, though, is I'm starting with back and I'm starting with pull downs. And I want to start with the concept of, if you think you're training your back, are you really? What I often see when people do back exercises is that they mistakenly will keep their shoulder joint in one place and they just kind of pull the handle. So what you'll see in a machine such as this is I'm trying to, or what people will think of doing, is pulling this handle towards their body. So they're just gonna pull the handle down and back up, pull the handle down and back up. Instead of focusing on what is their body doing, like what are the muscles doing. In this exercise, what I'm trying to target is my lat, latissimus dorsi. And it connects to my upper arm bone and into the midline of the back where the spine is. The goal of that muscle is to pull my upper arm bone down next to my body. So I'm going to think of driving my elbow down and squeezing that lat muscle. So I want to let the muscle stretch, and then I'm going to pull down and squeeze. Stretch, down and squeeze. So my focus isn't really what the handle of the machine is doing. My focus is, can I feel this muscle stretching? Can I feel this muscle contracting? What is moving the weight, not whether or not the weight is being moved. So this is a main focus that I would think of when I'm trying to train my back, is am I focusing on the muscle, not the movement? That one tip alone will make a big difference. So focus on the muscle, not the movement. Another concept I focus on to ensure I'm actually engaging my back is performing a paused contraction at the bottom of each rep in my warm-up sets and usually in my working sets. Occasionally, if I'm trying to blend heavy weight and good technique, I might let go of the pause on like my last heaviest working set, but adding a pause really helps you feel what muscle has moved the weight. So I'll show you in this warm-up set. So what I'm looking to do is I want to get myself into a good position, and then as I'm performing the repetition, again, I want to think of the lat pulling my elbow down to my hip, and then I'm going to pause here. And then I'll think of my lat stretching, and then again, I'm going to pull the elbow down, almost like I'm trying to touch the elbow to my hip. So I'm going to pull the elbow down, and you can see here at the bottom of each rep, as the muscle contracts, I'm pausing in that peak contraction. What you'll notice is, in this pause, if you feel all of a sudden when you try to stop the weight that your bicep is really stressed, well then you know you likely pulled the weight down with your bicep. So instead, I want to come down and pause and feel that stress, that holding paused stress in this muscle. So I'm going to pause to make sure I feel it in the lat. This is a great way to engage the lat during your warm-ups and working sets to ensure that the lat is the muscle that's actually doing the work. So now we're gonna put it all together for a working set. And what I wanna show you in this working set is I'm gonna start the first repetitions with that pause in the contraction, and then I'll start to move into what I call rhythm reps, which is where I still wanna feel that contraction, but I'm not gonna actually stop the weight. So this is also called a slow and go technique, where you go slow and you get those pauses, and then you go and kind of drop the pauses, but allows you to continue more repetitions. It allows you to just get more time under tension, and that increases the muscular stress. So I typically would perform this technique at the last working set. It's an intensifier like rest pause, drop sets, forced reps, and other techniques, similar techniques. This is one I like to do as it blends a little bit of that really solid technique, but also a little bit of an overload. So in this set, let's say I was aiming for 10 reps, I could get 5 with a pause and 5 without. The next workout, I'll see if I can maybe get 6 with a pause and 4 without, then 7 and 3 and 8 and 2. So it gives me something to pursue every time I come into the gym to make a progression in my intensity to really push the muscle to continue to adapt. However, I don't have to stop at 6 and feel as though, oh, maybe I could have done a little bit more stress, or maybe that wasn't quite enough. Adding those rhythm reps helps you make sure that you maximize your intensity. Okay, let's see how this goes. Whew. Okay, so that worked well. I think I got 8 and 4. So 8 with a pause, 4 without. That gives me 12 total reps at this weight load. And then the next time I would do this exercise, I would try to progress in some way, whether that's progressing in my weight load, progressing in the pause reps, or the rhythm reps. So it gives you a lot of opportunities to create that intensity progression per workout. I finished up my working sets on the hammer strength variation. With that variation, it is an angled underhand. So I find that it's a really good stretch for the lat, but very quickly as you get fatigued, you can start to over-engage your bicep. It can actually start to kind of irritate the bicep. I have old bicep injuries on both sides due to strongman training. Unfortunately, I tore my biceps lifting stones when I was young and dumb and didn't quite know how to do it. And also in strongman, you can get accidents anytime. So that's just the name of the game. Now, due to those injuries, I've rehabbed them strength-wise, but they do fatigue a little bit quicker than everything else. What I like about Fitness Factory of Charlotte here is they have a lot of various machines. This one offers a neutral grip position, which is friendlier on the bicep, and it has these different loading pegs, so I can actually put the weight in different places. And this configuration allows me to emphasize the peak contraction. So when I'm stretched and my bicep would be most at risk to re-engage that next repetition, it'll actually feel lighter in that position. And then as I'm pulling down, as the bicep becomes in a safer position, a shortened position, it actually gets heavier and heavier. So what's neat about these kind of machines, this is an old Strive brand. Their design was copied then by Prime Fitness, and then it's been copied by a bunch of companies since then. But if you have a machine that offers the capacity to load different phases of the range of motion, one benefit, and the main benefit people use it for, is to overload the extended position, the stretch position. That has been shown in studies to possibly correlate with greater muscle growth. We can actually do the opposite and overload the contracted position in order to protect our muscles and joints, ligaments, tendons. You can actually find a friendlier joint version and muscle version of training by loading the shortened position. So I wanted to show this machine for that purpose, but also to show you how I'm going to keep the same concepts as the last exercise, but now do it with this new exercise. So just because the position is going to change a little bit, just because I'm on a different machine, it doesn't mean I'm going to change the quality of what I want to do. I'm still going to be focusing on the muscle, not the movement, and I'm still going to get those pauses in that peak contraction. Okay, so I'll catch a set here so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so I think I ended up getting about the same, 8 with a pause, 4 without. So it tended to work out that way. I didn't intend it to, but it did. So there you go. So now that gives me that same idea of progression. I can try to push for more paused reps, push for more rhythm reps, or aim for more weight. So those two movements finish up my vertical pull. So I'm now going to move into horizontal. I'm going to be doing a one-arm variation on this seated row. And for this movement, I am going to think of keeping my elbow close to my body. And I'm going to be pulling, again, with the thought of the elbow pulling towards my hip. What I want to do is make sure I don't over-rotate by just thinking of pulling that handle as far back as possible. Again, we want to focus on the muscle, not the movement. If I just pull that handle as far back as possible and I involve a bunch of rotation, I'm actually not going to be maximally contracting my back muscles. You can actually practice this yourself. If you were to just stand and pull your elbow back but don't rotate, you can feel how you can kind of squeeze the muscles in your back. However, if as I pull back I also rotate and I continue to drive my elbow back behind me, you'll feel that the muscles actually open up. They actually stretch open by trying to drive the elbow further back. So if we keep the torso stable and we just think of pulling the elbow back as far as it'll go before the torso would rotate, I want to maximally contract that lat muscle. That's how we want to perform our rows. So with this variation, I'm going to be targeting the lats some more, and then you'll see in the next row, I'm going to switch to kind of the mid-back. So you can see a little bit of a difference between those two variations. So for this one, again, I'm going to stay nice and slow and controlled. I'm going to focus on that peak contraction pause. And then on my last working set, maybe 1 or 2 last working sets, I'll drop that pause if I need to in order to push my intensity. Okay. So again, elbow drives back, but I try not to rotate the torso. So I'm using my other hand not only to stabilize my body, but it gives me a gauge of if my torso is rotating or not. I can actually pull with that non-working arm to stabilize and counter the forces of what I'm feeling with the working arm. So that non-working arm is actually still working, but it does a lot of its work in what would look like a controlled, stabilized manner. So let's catch one more here. Boom, there we go. So this is really just my warm-ups yet, so I don't want to go too crazy. But You can see again in my warm-ups, I'm always practicing that pause to make sure that the quality is maximal and I can feel the right muscle doing the work. Okay, let's catch maybe 6 reps on this side, then we'll get into our working sets. Okay, so that was really good. I'll add a little bit of weight and then we'll try those pause into no pause repetitions. So I finished up the one arm rows. I'm now going to be moving to doing a cable seated row with both arms. Switching to both arms actually increases the involvement of the mid back because now you have both sides of the body kind of pulling on each other in that stretch position. That's going to pull more along the musculature that connects to the backbone area of the back. So this is a good way to start to bring in more mid and lower traps, as well as also kind of fill in the inside edges of the lat muscles. This is something that I like to do more towards the end. I like doing my single arm stuff first because it's a weaker position doing one arm at a time than two arms. You can't move as much weight load with one arm. So I like to do that at the beginning and then finish with dual arm movements. So that way, even though I'm fatigued, I can still move more weight load than if I was doing a single arm movement fatigued. With this variation, one of the ways I like to perform this is a narrow neutral grip. I'm going to have my feet kind of low today, and I'm going to focus on uprighting my posture, but leaning forward. So I want my torso to be angled forward in this position, and then I'm going to try to maintain that angled forward position as I'm doing the row. I do want to allow my shoulders to stretch forward so the muscles of my upper back can open up and stretch under that weight load. And then I'm going to think of pulling my shoulder blades together, which happens to bring my shoulders back, which will happen to bring the handle towards me. But again, muscle, not movement. So I'm focusing on the muscles squeezing as maximally as possible, and the handle just happens to come closer to me. So I'm not going to sit here with my shoulders in one place and just move the handle. I'm going to let my shoulders stretch and squeeze, stretch and squeeze. Okay, so I'll do a warm-up set here to kind of talk through it some more, as if you need more talking. But this will be a warm-up set, and then we'll get into our heavier working set. So I do like to use wrist straps. You'll see me do this all the time. This allows me to focus on my back muscles, being the muscle that fatigues first, not my grip. If you are worried about your grip strength, just train that at the end or on another day. You don't want to use your back training for grip training, and you want to grow your back. So I have this in position. I have the weight load. I'm going to set my torso in that slightly angled forward position. I'm going to let the weight stretch my shoulders. I'm going to think of squeezing my shoulders back, get that pause, stretch, squeeze and pause, stretch, squeeze and pause. So this will be the variation of seated row that I'm doing today. And this helps me target the middle and lower traps, kind of fill in that dead spot in the middle of the back. So this adds good density and muscle bumps to the middle of your back. So we'll get 2 more. There's 1 and 2. Excellent. So my goal will be to get heavier and heavier into my working sets. And then on the working sets, I'm going to start with the paused reps and then maybe eventually kind of drop to just those rhythm reps. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I finished up the back portion of the workout. I'm now going to move into the chest. Since I did do these muscles 48 hours ago, everything has a little bit of a tightness, a little bit of a soreness to it. If you ever start into a workout and it feels as though the muscles are a little twingy, a little tight, maybe things are a little achy, one of my tricks that I use is I use a light weight and I'll do an isolation movement. So I'm going to do today like cable, well, I guess not cable, machine, seated flies. I'll be doing that for my warm-up into my working sets for my first movement. I like to start my chest workout with an isolation, really pump up the chest, beat up the chest, pre-fatigue the chest, so then when I go into my presses, my chest fails before my triceps do. So with this movement, what I'll do is I'll go a little bit later than I might normally use for a first warm-up, but I'll sit in here and just crank out a ton of reps. It's not uncommon for me to do 50 to maybe 100 reps. I've timed these sets before, doing 2-minute, 3-minute, even up to 5-minute sets where you're active the whole time. And what I like to do is, as I'm doing the movement, if I find a position where something might feel a little tight, I might shift a little bit to get an extra stretch. I might lift my rib cage a little bit, play around with my movements, and even like rotate my arms some. The idea is to find anything that's a little tight, get some movement into that tissue. That helps push fluid into the tissue, helps open up everything. This really helps the quality of your working sets. So you can sit there and foam roll and do lacrosse ball therapies and all these other warm-up movement, like movement preparation drills and exercises. There's nothing wrong with those. I give those to clients for various reasons. However, those are typically case-by-case, moment-by-moment things. They're not something I would want to have to use all the time. It's just if we have something a little bit tight, we know we can use that therapy to get it untight, but it shouldn't be tight all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop yapping and actually start moving. But with this, I have no repetition goal in mind. You can see already it's not heavy at all. It didn't change the way I talk in order for me to move this. But I'm just going to sit here and feel the chest stretch and squeeze, stretch and squeeze. So right now I feel a little bit of a tightness in the front side of my left shoulder. So what I can do is I can play around with my arm angle. I can even shorten my arms, bring my elbow bend a little bit in like this, or I can even lengthen my arms maybe a little bit more, and that helps me feel my chest engage better, and that'll pull out some of that tension away from the front of the shoulder. So I'll just sit here and do 50 to 100 reps. Like I said, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I really often don't count. So it's just getting flow and movement into the tissues. This will start to open up anything that's tight. It also improves my mind-muscle connection. It's going to be very easy for me to feel my chest after 50 to 100 reps of this. And then as I get progressively heavier into my working sets, the quality of my working sets will improve. So if you ever get into a muscle group and things feel a little tight, a little twingy, this would be a great way to get those tissues up and moving. And then also start your warm-ups at a lighter weight. So that way, as you progress through your warm-ups, if you're actually like close to an injury, you'll have a couple extra warm-ups to be able to identify that and then maybe switch your plans for the day. But you'll often find that as you go through the couple warm-ups, everything starts to feel a lot better, and then your working sets will be a much better quality overall. A fun technique that you can try on a machine like this, chest flies, I'll also do this sometimes with bicep curls, is a pump and stretch technique. We're gonna play with the available range of motion. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start the first repetition, get into full squeeze, and then I'm gonna perform just the inside portion of the range of motion. So the kind of half, the inside half. I'll do that for say 5 to 10 reps. The idea there is I'm pumping up the chest, but in a shortened range of motion. And then what I'll do is I'll open to the full range of motion to finish the set. This is a great feeling in the sense that you really pump up the tissue, and then when you move to that full range, you can feel the tissue just stretching. What I like about this is it keeps the stress tension of the exercise into the muscle specifically. So it's actually really safe on the tendons, the ligaments, the joints overall. So if you've never tried this before, give it a try, and then I'll show you what a set looks like. The key on this is to go nice and slow though. Make sure these half reps aren't fast and that you're not bouncing in and out of them. I think this is like 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we'll try the full range. Woo! That worked really well. Okay, after the isolation work, I do like to move into a compound press. Compound just means multiple muscles, multiple joints involved. So with this, I like to, when possible, choose a converging press, which means it starts wide, and as you press up, your hands actually get closer together. This here at Fitness Factory is one of my favorite machines. So this is a kind of a copy of Flex Fitness incline, like the Flex leverage. This is their an incline angle. But what I like about this is it's a low incline. This would be, I would say, roughly about 20 degrees, something like that. To me, this is a really good angle and target for the upper portion of the chest. If it goes any higher, I tend to struggle to feel my chest as opposed to a stretch through the front of my shoulder. Even when I squeeze my shoulder blades and tuck them down, no matter what I do, it tends to get more into my shoulder than my chest. And that could be related to the fact that I have short upper arm bones, so my arm tends to be more dominant in my presses. Back when I used to do powerlifting, I had a competitive press in competition at over 400 pounds, and I had pretty thick arms and shoulders, but no chest development. So I've had to actually back down my weights, do the isolations before the compounds, choose converging presses when possible rather than non-converging, and finally my chest started to grow. And I can't bench probably anywhere near as much as I used to. So it's not always strength related, it's more so stimulus related when you're looking at muscle growth. But this is one of my favorite machines here. So with this, what I think of when I'm performing a press, and especially if my goal is chest growth, is I want to have my shoulder blades together and tucked, and then I want to push my chest towards the ceiling, and during the press, I don't want to release tension off my chest at the top or the bottom. So at the bottom, we know to get a good stretch through the chest, and then I want to flex my chest to press. I don't want to just throw it with my arms. I want to flex from the bottom. And then at the top, you'll notice that I'm not pausing, I'm not locking out my arms, I'm keeping constant tension. So once I get to the top, I'm dropping right back into the next eccentric. So squeeze and then back into the eccentric. Squeeze back into the eccentric. So I'm never letting my chest get any break whatsoever during this set. This is going to limit how much weight I can move, but it keeps the entirety of the stress focused right into my chest. So that's how we want to perform our presses. If our goal is chest growth, we want to take the shoulders out, take the triceps out, take away any momentary pauses or releases of tension. Just a nice slow motion where you're focusing on flexing and stretching the chest. Next in the workout is another press. We're gonna do a flat angle this time. So I did the incline to kind of target my upper portion of my chest. I'm gonna be moving to a flat press. However, I'm gonna be using a neutral grip. This still allows me to get a good stretch in the bottom for the chest. And then as I'm pressing up, this machine does converge. So as I press up, my hands will come a little closer, which allows me to make sure that I keep my rib cage up and really get a good squeeze through the chest. By switching to the neutral grip, it does reduce a little bit of the risk of the exposure in the bottom position. Since I am training my chest 48 hours after training my chest, and I've already done flies, I've already done an overhand variation of a press. If I load this heavy and kind of push my intensity in another overhand position, it's not a bad thing. However, it can increase the risk of a strain or a tear on the chest. So one of the modifications I can make when possible is to switch to a more neutral grip. This makes the bottom stretch position more through the pec fibers in the middle of the chest, whereas an overhand position really pulls out into the armpit portion. So this allows me to just be a little bit safer on the chest connection to the upper arm, but still push my intensity. So that's why I'm making that change. It's not something that people would have to do. It's just an option. I've mentioned a few options throughout this workout on how to better protect your muscles and your connective tissues. So this kind of falls in line with that advice. Same thing here for execution. I'm gonna have a nice controlled stretch and a flex out of the bottom, not a bounce. And I wanna get to the top and then go right back into the next eccentric loading. I don't wanna stop at the top and give the chest a break. Okay, there you go. We got an upper body workout, a little bit different than the one we just did 2 days ago. I think it's fun to show how you can switch around some of the format, play with different exercise selections to create different stimulus and keep things more fun and interesting while still maximizing your progression. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section below. You can also reach out to us on our website, which is c3method.com. The 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so it's C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. And you can also find us on Instagram and follow us there, subscribe here on YouTube. However you do it, whatever you need, I hope you reach out. Okay, thank you for watching.